What's up everybody, my name is Mark and I'm a singing student. Let's get quickly into this song because it's a long song.
Pity your wife if you think.
But in all seriousness, nobody wants this video to be half an hour long, so let's analyze Freddie Mercury's voice in Bohemian Rhapsody. Having the multi-track with you is quite an experience because you get to hear every single voice Freddie Mercury recorded for the introduction section.
Is this the real life?
You can hear Freddie in absolutely every range of his voice.
Is this the real life?
Like in the first one, he was in his falsetto, that was more like mid voice.
Is this the real life?
That was like, I don't know, like a mix of things.
Is this the real life?
And all those voices being played at the same time create the amazing effect we know as the final result. In these same tracks, there are some vocal outtakes that weren't included in the final results of the song. For example, here.
And see, I'm just a poor boy.
While all the other harmonies were left in the final result of the song, these right here were removed in the mixing process. So this phrase we hear Freddie singing right here is not present in the final result.
I'm just a poor boy.
And the one that was left is the one we can see right here in the main vocal track. In the main vocals track.
I'm just a poor boy.
The fact that these vocal outtakes are not present in the final result doesn't necessarily mean they were like completely removed. So they're not hearable, but they are there and they have a function.
Would normally make it just a little bit different so you could feel the humanity of the two voices.
The most famous example of this is in the rock section of the song. We'll see it later, and that is that they actually left a vocal crack going into the beginning of the ballad section. We have one of the most fascinating things, and I think this was said by Brian May also, and he was explaining how accurate Freddie Mercury was when recording. He always reproduced the exact same pitch and tempo on every vocal take. So what this causes is that when you play them at the same time, they are so similar to each other, they start having like some phase problems.
Freddie was able to double track himself so precisely that it would actually phase.
So it starts sounding a little bit more metallic.
Mama.
What we can see here on the screen is the 4 vocal tracks of Freddie Mercury singing the phrase mama, and they're going to do it at the same time.
Mama.
Like a little robotic, and that is because Freddie Mercury was extremely accurate. We can hear every single one of them and it will sound normal.
Mama. Mama. Mama.
In terms of singing, this first phrase has an absolutely beautiful tone to it. This is a very breathy tone, like almost falsetto, but it's on the middle register, which is a Freddie Mercury tone we can also see in other songs like Somebody to Love in the beginning.
Each morning I get up, I die a little.
Like almost falsetto. It's not really in his chest like this second one.
Mama.
And the second one,
Mama.
it has a different amount of fullness to it. I really think that being in this soft tone is what allowed him, besides being the best singer of all time, to switch so flawlessly into his actual falsetto. He's going from a D4 note to an A4, and that is where most male voices will have like this massive break in tone, but he glides beautifully through the passage of the voice and you cannot hear a single change, which is what I love so much about this phrase.
Mama, life had just begun.
Which could sound incredibly different if he was trying to remain in his chest voice, and we can actually hear that from Freddie himself.
Mama, life had just begun.
I have no way of telling what this is all about. Like, this could just be the way Freddie tried to sing the song first and then he realized it sounded better in his falsetto, or maybe this was just Freddie trying to produce different tones to his voice so that they could be left in the final result of the song with a lower volume like we discussed earlier. I have no idea, like I cannot know, but here he's hitting all the notes entirely in his chest voice, which is exactly what he did in every single live performance of Bohemian Rhapsody. never ever used his falsetto in the way he did here in the studio. Now when he's done with his flawless falsetto, he goes straight into his chest voice again. That is a difficult like reverse transition to make as well for every singer, and on top of that he adds his classic distortion, his subharmonics, and it sounds exactly like this.
But now I've gone and thrown it all away.
I think in this phrase the subharmonics are only present when he says all.
Gone and thrown it all away.
Mixing process aside, those subharmonics and that distortion are like 90% of the reason that phrase is so hearable in the mix and over all the other instruments. So in theory, subharmonics are creating one very powerful and strong note, exactly one octave below the fundamental, so the one that Freddie sings. So that's what adds so much more volume and power to it. So after that, he goes straight into his belted range.
Mama!
So there are some vocal outtakes of this same note which are quite interesting. Some of them are slightly more powerful in my opinion, but when he goes into the closed vowels, so when he says ooh, closed vowels have a lot more of head voice resonance to them, so they will make you flip or switch into falsetto or head voice a lot earlier than open vowels. I think that's what's happening to Freddie on the vocal outtakes of this one.
Mama!
That will be flipping into head voice, and I think it's pretty beautiful. But that's not the take left in the final result, which is this one.
Mama!
So what comes next is a very upper range, difficult part of the song. Freddie Mercury is going to sing everything here with a lot of power and also aggression into his voice.
Didn't mean to make you cry.
This is how some of the vocal outtakes of this part sounded.
Didn't mean to make you cry.
Or this one.
Didn't mean to make you cry.
They're all quite similar. I think if you listen to them all at the same time, they will create that same effect we talked about before.
Didn't mean to make you cry. If I'm not back again this time tomorrow.
When he sings the word tomorrow, even if it doesn't look like it because it's such a short note, it's basically the hardest or highest note of this whole section. So sometimes Freddie changed the phrasing of this part of the song to avoid this like very short note in tomorrow because it's pretty hard. It's the same note he's going to do right now on Carry On.
Carry on, carry on.
But there he's singing in falsetto, while in Tomorrow he had to get to the same extremely high note but on his chest. There's something interesting about the carry on phrase. By analyzing the multitrack and the sheer fact that there's one whole track, which is the number 16 right here, which is entirely dedicated to that carry on phrase, it could suggest it was overdubbed. So like Freddie Mercury recorded everything into one take, but then he decided to re-record this particular note or phrase. Yeah, I think it's an overdub. If it's not an overdub, then something weird happened here. This is how some of the outtakes sounded.
Tomorrow, carry on, carry on.
And here's the overdub, which is just
Carry on, carry on.
that's the phrase we get in the final results. And it's weird, I don't know what to make of this, but in this same track, like right after this, he only sings the phrase matters, like
Matters.
so here he goes back into his whispery, vulnerable tone.
As if nothing really matters.
The following section is pretty much identical in terms of notes.
Too late.
Instead of saying mama, he's saying too late, but it is exactly the same note. I think his distortion and subharmonics are even more present here when he says face the truth than in the previous section.
And face the truth.
The mama he's about to sing right here also switches into head voice at the end of the closed vowel, and that was left in the final result.
Mama. sometimes wish I'd never been born at all.
Here's some of the outtakes for that same phrase.
I sometimes wish I'd never been born at all. But I sometimes wish I'd never been born at all.
So then comes the guitar solo, and then we go right into the operatic section. We have a lot of voices going on here. Our attention will probably go pretty quickly to Roger Taylor's vocals. He will be doing some incredibly high notes like this one, while Freddie will be doing low harmonies into that same section.
He's just a poor boy from a poor.
So their voices really just complement each other so perfectly.
He's just a poor boy from a poor. No, we will not let you go.
Like, I mean it, we have some really insane high notes by Roger Taylor here. Like, look at this. What? Like, and Freddie here is doing like a mid-range voice.
Very, very frightening me.
It's not very low, but it's definitely low in comparison to what Roger is doing.
No, we will not let you go. Let him go.
So Roger Taylor's vibrato is like super steady and consistent. So in the famous Roger Taylor high note part, Freddie's doing a super low harmony if you listen to it. For me. I do want to clarify something about this part, like that is a B flat 5. Like, this was probably a stylistic choice in the sense that Freddie Mercury was able to hit this note. So I do believe they chose Roger Taylor to do this phrase because he just added something to this song. Like, his tone is incredibly different from Freddie's when doing this same note. But that is an insanely high note. That is like in the soprano range, so like the highest female register of the voice. But I'm really glad they chose Roger Taylor for that part because it adds something like completely different to the song. So then we go into the rock section. Here we also have 4 vocal tracks by Freddie Mercury, which can be played at the same time, and they will probably have the same effect as the previous one.
So you think you can love me and leave me to die?
The big difference between this part and the ballad section from the beginning is that when they were mixing this part, the mixing engineers used every single vocal take to create a stereo effect, which is why that section sounds so amazing and why it kind of feels like Freddie's voice is surrounding you, because it's 4 of them and they're mixed in a way that you will be able to hear all of them at the same time, but in different places of the stereo image. So very similar to like at the beginning of the song, you heard some stuff on the left ear and some stuff on your right ear. This is something similar, but it's all happening at the same time, and the final result is this amazing effect.
Feel the humanity of the 2 voices. It wasn't just like an automatic double track, so it sounds huge.
So here's the famous rock section vocal crack.
You can love me and leave me to die.
So apparently that was left in the final results, but it's not really easy to hear. So I think it was pretty much like lower, like not all the way down, but like up to something around here. So in the final results, it's there, but it's not really hearable.
And leave me to die.
When he says die, he's doing a tenor high C, which is basically the highest note a male can do in his chest voice. Of course, people can go higher, even Freddie could go higher in his chest voice, but that's just sort of like a reference note. And then we go to the final section.
Nothing really matters.
Which is sung in a very similar tone to the opening lines to the ballad section, when he said mama.
Nothing really matters.
This is an outtake.
Nothing really matters. Nothing really matters. Nothing really matters to me.
That's beautiful.
To me.
That one was like a little bit longer. So that's it. I'm sorry I didn't go into more things in my analysis. Like in my previous videos, I talked about some other stuff like breathing and whatnot. I just didn't want to get into that same stuff in this video. So I do want to thank everybody for 8,000 subscribers. I really appreciate it. If anyone wants to support my work, I have a Patreon, I have a Discord server as well, where we talk about Queen and Freddie Mercury and singing as well. I'm a singing student. If you have some like singing questions I can maybe help you with, I'd be more than happy to. Just send me a message on the Discord server and we'll talk. And